Still trying to recover from the cold, but I'm doing great.
You know, honestly, I know there's some people on here that got disrupted. I did not. Normally it is me. I'm normally the guy with no power for 15 hours. So I invested in a little generator, but I did not get disrupted and it was beautiful. So I appreciate that. But if you got disrupted, reach out next time. We're happy to help. Um, all right. It is Monday the 13th. The year has started. Rick Hale, how are you?
Awesome. Thanks. Glad to be here.
So, I wanted to start our conversation with something a little interesting this morning. So, I was looking at the NBA standings, and Atlanta's kind of right here in the middle of the field. But what I thought was interesting is there's a lot to learn about business from sports. And you realize in sports, they track KPIs very openly, meaning how many wins, how many losses, how many home wins, losses, away win losses, points per game, all the different KPIs that they track. And the reality is tracking key performance indicators uh, is a success practice. And if you thought about it in terms of real estate, what would we track? Well, we'd probably track how many leads you received, how many contacts you made, how many appointments you set, how many appointments you held, how many of those appointments you held that you actually converted to signed agreements to closings, and so forth. Everything in life has a math formula to success to it. And obviously, just in the context of basketball here, this is what ESPN tracks. But I thought, Rick and Kelly, if we tracked every agent in our organization and put your numbers on a public website and ranked you, no different than the NBA does, how would that look? We're not going to, by the way, but just for purposes of would we be better if we had full transparency around the KPIs of our business in context of the field of players, right? What do you think?
Brett, that's interesting because last year was the year of the professional, and that's what professionals do is they track. And I would say if I had to make it public, you better believe it. I'm going to not be in the office at like 8 a.m. I'll probably be here at 7:30 a.m. making sure I have all my ducks in a row because everyone's going to know, did I make my calls? Did I not make my calls? Did I practice my scripts and dialogues so I know how to convert these calls and leads into appointments, or did I not? And I've become very, very strong at sharpening my skills, because that's what it's showing me on these public charts if we were to have them.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do, for Mark's sake, a sports ball analogy, and you and you own the NBA as the
Right.
owner of the entire league, which is what I suppose, like at the heart of Atlanta Group level, would be like owning a league with individual teams. Each player is a team. It's brilliant to know who's moving, shaking, and who needs help. The challenge is each individual player still or team has to identify opportunity and take action. So feedback's only beneficial if there's a feedback component and
Yeah, and
commitment.
I think a lot of our teams tend to do this inside of their team. I think some of our ALCs play the game this way and they're transparent about their numbers and the ALC groups together. I think some of our productivity coach groups do this together and track their numbers. So there's lots of ways you could do it. It doesn't have to be the whole field of play, obviously, but I think the lesson in this conversation is to win and to succeed and to be professional. It absolutely is paramount that you track your stats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing's true of knowing the data that we share every week on the industry call. It's useful information, but if it's just for information's sake, it's just trivial pursuit. you've got to then context that in a way that furthers the needle for your credibility with your clients and take action. Action's the elixir to stepping up your game.
There you go. Well, speaking of, our website went down, therealestatestats.com. So you're getting the rudimentary spreadsheet behind the website this morning, but it's still the same data. So just FYI. We had 828 new active listings hit the market in the last 7 days in Fulton County. So one of the talking points is, we say it every year, there's a ramp up period that starts on January 1st. And you see at the end of the last year, there was 309 new active listings, and then 675 a week ago, and 828 this period, previous 7 day period. But if you look back in Fulton County, there were a couple weeks back in October, we got close to 1,000 new listings hitting the market, but 854, 867, 843. Man, I could almost make a case that we're almost back up to full speed on putting new listings on the market in Fulton County, which I always ask myself the question at the beginning of every year. Some years start slow, some years start fast, but everything's at full speed by March. It just, some months or some years, the January is a slow start. I don't know. It sure feels like January is kicking off pretty fast this year, just looking at numbers and stuff like that. So just context. 95 people said yes in the last 7 days. Big improvement from the previous 7 days. Big improvement from the last week of last year. Big improvement from the second to last week of last year. You got to go back to mid-December to have the same volume of people saying yes to the house. And mind you, Kelly, to your comment, there was ice on the road a couple of the days inside of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
people were making snowmen and snow women in their front yards, not specifically looking at houses. But what I loved is I saw quite a few social media posts. I think it was on Saturday, people out showing real estate. Hopefully you were safe driving and all that fun stuff. But I don't know that the weather disrupted it that much, to be honest.
From my observations, Brett, because Christmas and New Year's kind of fell in the middle of the week, and that's kind of you could have ended that first weekend and you're already going into New Year's mode. And I had that debate with several agents. Do we list that very first weekend of January, which would have been like, I think the third and fourth or thereabouts, or fifth and sixth, I should say, and then, or this one. And so I think I was surprised to see how many people listed that very, very first weekend in January, which, snow or no snow, they were going to make an offer that this past 7 days, which I see they did. And it's just like a little temporary day or two pause, which means I think we'll have some more go pending in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, I think we're having a fast start to the year, and I find that very encouraging. 182 are pending. That's a 3 week high. So obviously we expect it to progressively grow in as January progresses. But we had 250 properties close out in Fulton County in the last 7 days. That's a big number, considering if you look back, we didn't have a single week in December that was that high. So now we're sitting middle of January with 250 closings in Fulton County, and that's more than we had any one single week in December, including the end of the month. There was 332 the very last week of the month, but that included portion of January. But those are big numbers. So just by and large, I think what I'm taking from this is, man, if I'm sitting idle and I'm a real estate professional, the market's telling me it's not idle. It's moving. And I need to take notice that I need to get out there and get going, because it's moving pretty quick at the beginning of this year. To hit the other counties, DeKalb County had 469 new active inventory. same comment. I mean, look at these numbers leading up to this. That's a great inventory number coming on the market in DeKalb County. We had 61 under contract, which obviously is a 3 week high, and 61 is not too far off where DeKalb County's full speed is. And then 111 pending, with 155 that closed out in the last 7 days. Now, obviously, there was 207 at the end of the year, but 155, that's pretty full speed for DeKalb County in closings in a 7 day period. So, same comment, right? We're moving fast. Round out on Cobb County, 402 new active inventory hitting the market. One of the questions Luke and I were talking about this morning when we were doing a prep call for our State of the Industry that's coming up on January 30th is, I believe if I picked up a buyer today, a normal buyer, not an outlier, but a normal buyer, the inventory's on the ground for me to find them something to buy. And obviously, there's going to be outliers in this conversation. But if you remember and rewound 2, 3 years, that same buyer, I might have shown them everything on the market and would have been in a holding position waiting on something to come on the market to show them. I think the inventory right now is growing. And I believe the inventory is on the market for you to find people to buy real estate today. And you don't have to play we got to wait till something comes on the market game. I don't know. 109 pending, and then 139 closed out in the last 7 days. If there was one of the three counties that was maybe moving a little slower, it's probably Cobb, but not anything to write home about. I think that they're fine. I mean, they're doing good. They're starting the year fast, just the same. Any thoughts on the numbers?
I felt that Atlanta's market really starts right after New Year or right after this ice, whatever, if we have an ice storm or something. I've always felt like spring markets then, and actually that's where, these few weeks right now, it's so critical to be making your care calls and your touch calls and your lead gen calls. They've thought about this. Everyone who's wanting to buy this year had already thought about it. So we just need to get in front of them.
Yeah, for
And
me,
I've
it's
been
like
feeling this. I'm sorry, go ahead, Rick.
no, you please.
No, and I've been feeling this in December and January as well. And I mean, just kind of setting up for a great, for me, it's going to be an amazing February because some of the January's rolled into February. But the December and January season has been very different than past seasons, we'll just say. So the business is out there, it's real, and now we're actually seeing the numbers. So
Yeah, and what you focus on expands, and you can either take an optimistic perspective on life and data or pessimistic. To me, again, it comes back to the narrative that you're promoting. And if, I can clearly see active inventories up, and if I have buyers who are considering a buy anytime this year, I feel like the conversation should be, hey, inventory's climbing, get out in front of buyer demand. Most buyers are still hibernating. This could be your golden opportunity. What can I do to enhance it? Absolute certainty that you're in the driver's seat when the day comes you find the perfect house. So that's a simple script, but come up with some narrative that inspires people to that reticular activator to light up and just bring the conversation as fast and soon as possible.
Hey, Brett, the Realtor.com identified once again Atlanta to be in the top 10 real estate markets for 2025. I think it's the fourth or fifth consecutive year we've been in the top 10. Goldman Sachs increased its projections for average home price sales increase in 2025 from 3.2 to 4.4, which means waiting costs even more. If people wait a year for a $450,000 house, even if mortgage rates go down 1 point, they're still going to lose over $15,000 in equity.
And I don't believe mortgage rates are going down 1 point, just for prediction standpoint. So there is no cost of waiting. There's only lost opportunity. All right. there's this fun little article. Bear with me, but I want you to know about it because this is about the industry. Um, we've talked about the TCPA. Most of you, that stands for Telephone Consumer Protection Act. Um, most of you associate that with the do not call list. However, there are some big changes coming to the TCPA January 27th. And what are those changes? Are specifically these three things. They want to close the loopholes exploited by lead generation companies. So, what does that mean? It means if I'm a lead aggregator and I would say unethically, but they've done it in the past, they generate a lead and they would sell the same lead to 5 different agents. And therefore, that consumer was receiving 5 different prospecting calls. So they're actually wanting to tighten it up to where if I'm a lead aggregator, I can only sell that lead to one agent. And that one agent I have to have written consent from the consumer that I'm passing their information along to an agent. So what does that really mean? Let's say I'm on Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com. My guess is those aggregator companies are going to have some kind of uh, communication with the consumer that's very clear that they're asking to be contacted by a real estate agent. And you can have, I wouldn't say 100% confidence, but you could have higher confidence that you're the only one getting that lead from that aggregator company. The other thing is, if you read through this article, that lead expires 18 months later. So it's your lead for 18 months from that company. So that doesn't mean Realtor.com couldn't sell them to somebody and Zillow couldn't sell them to somebody and sell them to somebody. But they're really wanting to close the loophole. What's the motivation behind that? If a lead aggregator sells the same lead to 5 different people, then that consumer is going to, in theory, receive 5 different prospecting calls. And they don't like that. They want it tighter. So then the question I'm asking myself is, is the quantity of leads from an aggregator going to go down? Potentially, but the quality of it should go up. And I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's certainly a sweeping change that the TCPA is rolling out on January 27th. The next one is they want to crack down on excessive robocalls and automated texts. So, do you receive unknown phone calls as a consumer all day long? I do. Do you receive automated text as a consumer? You do, and they don't like that, and they want to crack down on the companies that are doing these automated phone calls and texts. Where does that affect us? A lot of us have technology relationships that are promising lead generation or lead conversion through robocalls and automated text. I think it could affect some of that. But nonetheless, it's something to be aware of. And then the third one is they want to strengthen consumer protections through stricter consent requirements. So saying starting January 2025, real estate agents must obtain individual written consent to contact anyone using automated technologies, such as auto dialers, pre-recorded messages, or AI-powered communication tools. What does that mean? We're still learning, but there was a business practice, or maybe still is. People would use auto dialers for expired leads. They would use auto dialers for sale by owner leads, or They would do put people into technology, and the technology would send out pre-recorded messages, or the technology would send out uh, AI powered phone calls or texts. They're cracking down on it, guys. And the challenge with this in our industry, just so you're aware, is E&O does not cover TCPA violations. So if you get caught do not abiding by this, it could cost you and us and all in between quite a bit of money. So I think it's worthy of us paying attention to it. And the other thing I thought about is when we all went to real estate school, one of the things that we learned about was like fair housing, for example. You learned what discrimination was, you learned what protected classes were. This is something that's similar to a legal thing that affects our industry and our way of doing business that came out after all of us went to real estate school. So my guess is the real estate agent of tomorrow will probably learn about all this in real estate school, but the rest of us are just going to have to show up to industry update and learn about it on this call. Fair enough? Rick, Kelly,
Absolutely.
butcher it, or am I clear?
Super clear.
That was actually well said. Well
Yeah.
I'd
said.
love to cut the robocalls down, man. If somebody could figure that's beautiful. So,
All right. Well, let's hit some of these hot topics. I want to hit this one real fast. If you're not aware, you're living under a rock. LA has just been decimated with fires. So I have two big talking points about it. One is you never think it's going to happen to you. You always think it's going to happen to somebody over there. Yet, could this happen to us in our neighborhood? It could. And one of the cool things about Keller Williams is this KW Cares takes care of our own. So they're going to take care of all the agents and extended family members in LA that have been decimated by these fires. And it's just a reminder that we should probably participate to make sure if it was ever to happen, one, it's the right thing to do. And two, if it was ever to happen to us, they would be there for us tomorrow. And I think it's worthy of a mention that KW Cares does some pretty amazing things. The second talking point is where are these people going to live? And does Atlanta, I don't want to say benefit, but does Atlanta pick up an influx of people out of California? I absolutely think they do. One. Two, I think the amount of houses that have been burnt down will take years to reconstruct. And three, the other thing I thought about, and then I'll shut up and let y'all talk, is, you know, if your house were to burn down today, you feel comfortable that your insurance company would pay and rebuild your house. But the reality is, I don't know that all the insurance values are up to speed on what it would actually cost to rebuild those houses the way they were. So maybe it's a reminder we probably should check our insurance policies. But two, I'm pretty certain a lot of these people are going to relocate. Not all, but a lot. And I think quite a few of it might make its way to Atlanta. Just my 2 cents. Somebody else have a comment?
it's a long way to go, but we've had people migrate from other states before.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that Atlanta wouldn't be one of 5 cities that they would consider if it was a massive relocation or a complete departure from the state. And not to suggest California's got issues because, well, California may have issues outside of the fires. People are migrating or, leaving as it is for bordering states anyway.
And as part of my plan, I mean, I'm reaching out to a few different folks on the West Coast. Obviously, my client base and family, of course, out there, and I have family members that on my other half side that have lost up to 3 homes, have lost up to 3 homes so far, possibly 4. So I'm coming at it from on the reach out, I'm coming at it from a place of empathy, of course, and then an opportunity to see how I can help, if they have an interest of kind of getting out of the LA area. So, that's how I'm positioning it, and that's what I'm doing on my plan.
Even if they don't move to Atlanta, it's still a referral opportunity, Ken.
That is correct.
And that's powerful.
That's correct.
All right. I want to hit a couple other talking points just so you can go read the articles. Luke posts them in Circle every week. But there's a 700 home community for families and seniors that's being planned in Stonecrest. It's still very commutable to downtown. And you need to be aware of this just so and the price point is going to be first time home buyer affordable. So it's pretty close to a downtown area. Stonecrest is just south of Tucker on the I-20 corridor. You need to be aware of that. Second thing is,
Can I add one quick thing? I found it interesting
please.
I found it interesting in the article that it's a joint venture with a church. And so it kind of led my creative mind to open up the potential that as an agent, if you're looking for opportunities, if you bring the land, the chances of, landing some new construction go up significantly if you're the source. So don't leave out the idea that any vacant land owned by anybody has potential for, either a sale or joint venture.
There you go. All right. Affordability. So quick education on affordability. If prices go up and income goes up at the same level, affordability stays the same. But what's happened is prices have gone up and incomes have not gone up the same proportion. However, pricing in Atlanta was positive, but it probably was around 1% last year. But incomes grew at about 4% in 2024, which moves the needle back towards affordability, which is probably a good thing for us in 2025. And what that means is, the pandemic kind of created uncertainty around incomes, and then the hyperinflated market, the unemployment, all that stuff was just kind of disrupted for a period of time until it reset. And it looks to be that the median growth around income has started to go in a north direction. And that's probably a good thing for affordability. The other article I popped on here was the baby boomer effect is hitting the housing market. We've talked about this. The stat says 43% of the baby boomers say they'll never sell a home. Here's my challenge with this, and I'm choking. I apologize.
I'll add this. One of the stats said that only 18% were staying because of interest rate, where we're kind of running around talking about how everyone's trapped due to interest rate. It looks like more of it's quality of life. Their home's almost paid off and they don't want to move and they don't plan to ever sell.
Yeah, I heard a statistic recently that said the average age of the home buyer in 2024 was like 58 years old. So if you realize half are above and half are below, the half are above are still baby boomers. So it's not 100%. It's saying a chunk of them are saying they would never sell, but there's still 57% of them that are saying they would move. So I wouldn't rule it out as if baby boomers aren't going to move at all, but it's a large enough percentage that we're feeling it. But then again, I hear that other statistic and it makes me think, whatever. Make sense?
But it's not rate alone. That was the only point I saw in there.
100%. And then the other talking point, we're hitting it fast today. I apologize, but you can read the articles. December had a really strong jobs report. This obviously speaks to unemployment coming down a little bit. It also speaks to the wage growth. And ultimately, this is a healthy report for our industry because you have to have good credit, money to put down, and a job to buy real estate. Yet it's probably going to slow down all of our expectation around interest rates coming down fast. And what they're saying is investors who fund most home loans are now convinced the Fed's not going to cut the Fed interest rate again until next summer, which that doesn't necessarily mean interest rates aren't going to come down before next summer. It just means that the Fed's not going to artificially start dropping rates to pull the economy down, or I'm sorry, to speed the economy up. Um, and ultimately, this is a double-edged conversation because on one hand, it's good for us. On the other hand, it may keep interest rates a little higher than we anticipated. Questions, comments on anything we covered today?
Brett, I would say this is as to be expected, a very robust January coming in. That's why there's so many great articles. I just say, this is time to put your pedal to the metal and just go, because I think if you haven't been receiving the calls, you need to be going out and making some calls, because I do think the business is out there. And especially after you're cooped up for a weekend, you may even want to get out of your house too. So I think opportunities out there just for those who are grabbing it.
Yep, for sure. Rick, last words. You're the wise one.
No, I wouldn't say
Not
that.
that Kelly's not, but whatever.
I wouldn't say that at all. But I just think the bottom line is the narrative you're sharing is the trajectory of your business. So take all of this context and content and then fuel daily behavior so that activity reigns supreme, not just the thought-provoking conversation we're having.
There you go. Happy Monday, guys.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.